Here are the top 20 worst animal parents in the world. 20. Sharks. Sharks can be oviparous, like the horned shark, viviparous, like the giant hammerhead, or ovoviviparous, like the basking shark. In every instance, parents do not provide protection or care for their newborn children. Once the eggs or young have left the mother's body, they disperse and lose contact. 19. Butterflies. The butterflies are yet another species that neglects its young. Both internal fertilization and sexual reproduction are used by these winged insects. The female keeps the sperm after mating until she locates an appropriate plant to place the fertilized eggs. The females attempt to select a plant that will offer protection for the eggs and food for the larvae after hatching, even though either cares about the various stages the young go through. 18. Megapods. Birds are known for their passionate and continual care for their offspring. Megapods are a well-known exception, though. Megapods, which resemble chickens but are larger, are sometimes known as incubator birds or mound builders. Instead of incubating their eggs, they place them on clumps of decomposing vegetation where the heat will hatch the eggs. The eggs can also be heated geothermally by putting them in small wells. Parents modify or add to the flora on their mounds to regulate temperature even though they do not nurture their eggs. As soon as the eggs are laid, the chicks rise to the surface and can begin to feed and fly as soon as 24 hours later. 17. Chameleons. Like the majority of lizard species, chameleons neglect their young. The majority of these reptiles lay eggs for reproduction. The female excavates a hole in which she places the eggs after mating with multiple males. After completing this, she departs from the eggs, leaving neither parent present throughout passive incubation. Only the Jackson's chameleon gives birth to young instead of laying eggs within the chameleon family. 16. Snakes. Snakes can reproduce in a variety of ways, but they always undergo internal fertilization. While some animals like pythons are oviparous, others like rattlesnakes and boas are ovoviviparous. Considering how poorly they care for their eggs and young, snakes are among the worst animal parents. But pythons and the king cobra, Ophiophagus hana, which stay in their eggs until they hatch, are exceptions that we have discovered. 15. Corals. Corals are creatures that dwell in the sea and are classified as invertebrates. Corals reproduce sexually, like other creatures do, by producing sperm and eggs, as well as asexually, like plants do, by cuttings. When male and female reproductive cells come together during sexual reproduction, fertilization takes place. Fertilization produces an egg that develops into a planula larva that swims around in the ocean currents for a while before sinking to the bottom. The larva then develops into a polyp, which creates a new colony when it clings to a rock. 14. Ticks. One particular kind of arachnid known to parasitize other animals, including dogs and cats, is the tick. They typically have several partners throughout the same reproductive cycle. On the host, whose blood they feed, mating occurs. Up to 15,000 eggs can be laid by the largest ticks. In actuality, female ticks typically pass away after laying their eggs. 13. Anemones. A cnidarian species with only aquatic behaviors are sea anemones. They might be sequential hermaphrodites, which means they can change sex, or they might have distinct sexes. Sexual or asexual reproduction are both possible. In the first instance, sperm from males triggers the release of eggs from females, which are then fertilized. A new anemone then develops there as a result of metamorphosis. 12. Crabs. Depending on the species, crabs are either aquatic or terrestrial crustaceans. More than 4,000 species are classified as crabs. Although some simply enter the water to spawn, the majority of species live near or in water. Similar to the other arthropods, many species take use of the need to molt their exoskeletons during growth in order to reproduce. The larvae are also released into the water in species that are terrestrial. Following this process, the mother crab abandons the baby crabs, leaving them to fend for themselves. 11. Pandas. Mammals are known for investing a lot of time in raising their young, which depend on their mother's milk for optimum development. The exception to this is the panda bear, Ailuropoda melanoleuca. On the one hand, men are among the worst parents in the animal kingdom since they do not help with childrearing. On the other side, twin pregnancies in females are extremely common. In this instance, the mother chooses the more robust baby to care for it, leaving the weaker one behind, who finally perishes from starvation. This is thought to occur because the females are unable to produce enough milk for 2 pups. 10. Polychaete. Polychaete larvae are typically planktonic and have a relatively high mortality rate, with many of them getting eaten by predators or succumbing to other environmental factors. However, some Polychaete species do exhibit interesting parental behaviors. For example, some species of Polychaete worms in the family Terribellidae construct elaborate burrows or tubes to protect their eggs and larvae. The parents also actively fan their eggs to ensure a steady supply of oxygen and remove debris that might accumulate on the eggs. Overall, while polychaetes may not have the same level of parental care as some other animals, they have evolved unique strategies to increase the chances of their offspring's survival in the challenging marine environment. 9. Marsh eel. Marsh eels, also known as mud eels, are not typically known for their parenting abilities. In fact, they have a reputation for being some of the worst animal parents. Marsh eels are known for laying their eggs in shallow water or mud, and then abandoning them to hatch and develop on their own. They do not provide any form of parental care or protection for their offspring. This lack of parental care can make it difficult for marsh eel offspring to survive and thrive in the wild. However, it's important to note that marsh eels are not unique in their poor parenting habits. 8. Leech. Female leeches typically lay their eggs in a gelatinous mass or cocoon attached to a solid surface. Once the eggs are laid, the adult leeches do not provide any further care for their young. The eggs hatch into small, independent juvenile leeches that are capable of finding their own food and surviving on their own. While this lack of parental care may seem neglectful, it is actually a common reproductive strategy among many invertebrate species. By laying a large number of eggs and providing no parental care, leeches and other species are able to maximize their reproductive output and increase their chances of passing on their genes to the next generation. 7. Flatworms. While it is true that flatworms, also known as planarians, do not exhibit the kind of parental care that is commonly observed in other animals, it may be inaccurate to label them as the worst animal parents. Flatworms do not have a complex reproductive system like mammals, birds, or even some insects. They typically reproduce by laying eggs, which then hatch into offspring that are able to fend for themselves from the moment they are born. While flatworms may not provide their offspring with food or protection, they do lay their eggs in a safe environment where the eggs are less likely to be eaten or destroyed. 6. Nematodes. Roundworms, commonly referred to as nematodes, are a form of worm that can be found in many different settings all over the world. Not all nematodes are hazardous, despite the fact that they are frequently classified as parasites. In reality, several nematodes can aid plants by preventing pests and illnesses. However, it's important to note that nematodes are not intentionally bad parents. They simply lack the cognitive and behavioral complexity to engage in parental care. Additionally, this lack of parental care is not necessarily a disadvantage for nematodes, as they are able to produce a large number of offspring, and the survival of their species is ensured through their ability to adapt and reproduce quickly. 5. Sea urchins. Sea urchins are not known for their parenting skills as they are not actively involved in caring for their offspring after spawning. Female sea urchins release their eggs into the water, and male sea urchins release their sperm to fertilize them. Once fertilized, the eggs hatch into larvae, which then swim and feed in the plankton for several weeks before settling on the ocean floor and developing into adult sea urchins. Because sea urchins do not provide any parental care beyond spawning, they are not considered to be good or bad parents. 4. Sea pens. Sea pens are not actually animals, but rather a type of marine cnidarian that resembles a feather quill. However, if you are referring to the parenting behavior of certain animals, it is true that some species exhibit poor parenting skills. For example, some species of sharks and rays lay their eggs and abandon them, providing no further parental care. Similarly, some species of amphibians and reptiles also lay their eggs and do not provide any additional care once they hatch. While these animals may not provide much parental care, their offspring are still able to survive and thrive in their respective habitats. 3. Sponge. Sponges are simple aquatic animals that lack a nervous system and other complex organs. As such, they don't really exhibit parental behavior or care for their offspring in the same way that other more advanced animals do. However, There are some species of sponges that can produce larvae that swim freely in the water before settling down and metamorphosing into adults. In these cases, the sponges may release their larvae into the water column, where they are vulnerable to predators and other environmental hazards. However, this is a natural part of the sponge's reproductive strategy and a sign of bad parenting. But some scientists believe that the dispersal of sponge larvae in the water can help to promote genetic diversity. 2. Bryozoa. Bryozoans, also known as moss animals, are aquatic invertebrates that belong to the phylum Bryozoa. Bryozoans reproduce both sexually and asexually, depending on the species. Some species produce eggs, which are fertilized by sperm released by nearby individuals, while others produce clones of themselves asexually by budding. In either case, bryozoans do not provide any parental care for their offspring. 1. Barnacles. Barnacles are not known for being very involved parents, as they do not actually care for their offspring once they are released into the water. Barnacles have a larval stage that hatches from eggs and swims freely in the water. Once the larvae settle and attach themselves to a suitable surface, they metamorphose into the adult form of the barnacle. At this point, the adult barnacle is unable to move or feed independently, and relies on filter feeding to obtain nutrients from the surrounding water. What do you think of our video? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more videos.